everybody, Sean here from Movie Assault, and it is time for episode 4 of the October 2023 version of the Halloween 15. And this time around, I wanted to take a look at Splatter University from 1984, a very not so subtly titled attempt to cash in on the slasher genre in the early 80s. This film was actually released in 1984, but it was made in 1981, at least initially. The filmmakers, director was Richard W. Haynes. They shot 65 minutes worth of usable film, and then they realized it was too short to release. So the next year they shot 13 more minutes of footage and extended it to a wildly crazy 78-minute long film. It's very easy to tell what footage was shot when. Because the new footage is mostly college kids, or supposedly college kids, talking about partying and drinking and sex, and none of those scenes have anything to do with the main storyline, and I don't think there's only one character that is in both the new footage and the old footage, and they kind of cross over. The story kicks off with the escape of a mental patient from Bellevue Hospital in New York City. And the movie, if you couldn't tell from the name Splatter University, it kind of telegraphs its total headspace of being sort of a slasher knockoff or just a cash-in, with the very first kill, which is a guy getting stabbed in the crotch. So you can sort of tell from the terrible performances at the beginning of the film. And if that wasn't enough to clue you in, the bargain basement opening titles really telegraphs where this movie's headspace is at. So then we flash forward 3 years to St. Trinian's College, where a professor is murdered and a new professor needs to be hired to teach sociology. And we're introduced to Julie Parker, who is played by Francine Forbes, who would later become known as Forbes Riley. But here she's billed as Francine Forbes. And she moves in, takes the sociology position, and befriends a local, or another professor at the college named Cynthia, played by Laura Gold. And through that, we get some exposition about what has happened at the college, what's going on. And Cynthia kind of warns Julie about this other guy who works there called Mark Hammond. And he sort of becomes Julie's love interest despite Cynthia's warning. He becomes sort of important later in the story. But then bodies start piling up on campus, and Julie becomes very concerned. She's very worried about her safety and the safety of her students. She's also kind of intrigued by the fact that Father Jansen, the school's administrator, doesn't seem to be too worried about all of these killings, at least not until Julie thinks she knows who the killer is. This is a movie that, no matter what I say, is not going to dissuade people from watching it, because it's a zero-budget movie released by, or distributed by the Trauma Team. So if I say Trauma Team and that immediately sparks some recognition, you know what you're getting into with this movie. It is lower than low budget. The filmmakers didn't seem to have any basic knowledge of film continuity. So there are scenes where it's supposedly the next day and the characters are still wearing the same clothes. In fact, there was so little regard for continuity on the making of this film that Francine Forbes actually kept her own notes about continuity, about what her character was wearing in different scenes, so she could make sure that at least her character had the same clothes on when she was supposed to. The kills are not particularly good. Some of them are a little puzzling. I don't think you can die from being slashed across the forehead with a knife, but that happens in this movie. Most of the kills are like a one-stab deal, and then blood gushes from the victim's mouth, and then they fall on the floor. That's kind of how they all are. The special effects makeup isn't terrible. It's probably too good for this movie. Just, putting everything else into context, because the performances, other than Francine Forbes, are genuinely terrible. Everybody involved. And the story in the midpoint, I don't know if it's a bad edit or a reel was missing or something, but it just seems like the characters make this jump of logic and they don't clue the viewer in on it. And you're like, wait, what the hell is happening? But if you like the zero budget type movies where, you can look for errors and kind of laugh along with them, you're going to love this movie. If you're somebody who likes to watch movies and be entertained and not have to worry about the fact that you can't figure out who's standing on what side of the room because the filmmakers didn't care to keep the angles straight, you're not going to have that great of a time with this movie. So I give it a 2 out of 10. But sleaze pros and gore hounds and horror fans who will watch anything that has blood in it will probably really enjoy this movie. So, and I'm aware of that, and I know what this movie's appeal is. I just didn't like it. I didn't find it scary at all because it's just a slasher cash-in, and it really had less to do with being a good film or at least a scary film, and more to do with being trashy and absolutely absurd. So there you go. That's my review of Splatter University from 1980 something, 1981, 1982, 1984, and I give it a 2 out of 10. There you go. That's my review. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode, episode 5 of the Halloween 15, which I don't know what I'm going to review next. So stay tuned and find out.